but in the blink of an eye, his determination surged, and he was ready to conquer it. Time passed, and the countdown began. Finally, Han Sung-yoon entered the second-floor trials. As he arrived at the scene, the system notified him that his mission was to kill the leader of the Orc tribe within a set time limit. Han Sung-yoon stood on a cliff above the Orc tribe village and saw firsthand how massive, powerful, and terrifying these creatures called Orcs were. He was taken aback at the idea of having to go down there alone and take on their leader. In the Orc village, these creatures didn't speak human languages, they just grunted like pigs. They had huge green bodies and long, menacing fangs. Han Sung-yoon observed them from behind the bushes and analysed the situation. Taking on even one of them seemed like a tough challenge, let alone facing many. To defeat all the Orcs, Han Sung-yoon realised he would need at least a team of E-rank hunters. Han Sung-yoon considered stepping back and devising a better plan. But then, a sudden realisation struck him. He remembered a potential solution. He gathered firewood and started a fire, saving one burnt log for later. With determination, he decided to sneak closer to the Orc village once more. Han Sung-yoon recalled that despite their appearance, Orcs were quite clever creatures. Hunters typically went out in the early morning and returned after sunset. Han Sung-yoon still had plenty of time. The only way to clear this trial with its high difficulty level and his limited strength was by using fire. So, Han Sung-yoon cautiously circled the Orc village while the guards were not paying close attention and took a well-deserved lunch break. This young man sprinted with all his might, tossing already lit firewood into the blaze. The fire roared to life and consumed the Orc village. The Orc monsters were in a frenzy, trying to put out the flames. Han Sung-yoon knew that if he could eliminate a few worker Orcs, he'd have an easier time facing the hunter Orc later. Hiding and waiting, Han Sung-yoon spotted a lone working Orc. He swiftly struck, absorbing the Orc's soul core with his hand. His skills and strength improved slightly, but in an instant a massive Orc guard loomed behind him. Without hesitation, Han Sung-yoon confronted the monstrous Orc. Initially shocked and overwhelmed, he activated his reserved soul, boosting his stats and power. With determination, he defeated the tough Orc guard. As the foe fell, Han Sung-yoon absorbed its soul core while keeping a vigilant eye on his surroundings. With increased stamina, strength, and agility, he quietly entered the Orc settlement. The Orcs panicked at the sight of a hunter invading their already chaotic territory. Han Sung-yoon assessed his opponents. 5 Orcs. He only needed to be cautious of the guard to reach the Orc elder. He closed in rapidly on the Orc elder, but suddenly, an Orc guard blocked his path, delivering a powerful punch. Undeterred, the young man fought back against the great Orc's last-ditch resistance with all his might. He directed his sword into the big Orc's chest until it vanished. In that moment, as Han Sung-yoon had just defeated the opponent, the elderly Orc elder launched a fireball at him, catching him off guard. But to their surprise, the young man remained standing, anger in his eyes. He had somehow survived the intense burst of flames, earning him the F-rank fire-resistant skill. With this, Sung-yoon was really mad at the old elder. He was determined not to let the Orc boss get away. As soon as he dodged the attack, Han Sung-yoon calmly advanced toward the panicked Orc elder. The Orc chieftain tried to attack Han Sung-yoon again, this time with a fiery burst from his staff, but it didn't work. Han Sung-yoon not only blocked the attack, but also chopped off the old Orc's staff and arm, making the old Orc scream. The Orc elder ran backward into his tent with a wicked look on his face. Han Sung-yoon followed the creature into the camp. Inside, he saw the old elder hugging 2 small Orcs, protecting them. There was also a small Orc at his feet, as if begging for mercy. This reminded Han Sung-yoon of the day his parents died. They had protected him and told him to run. Lost in thought, Han Sung-yoon suddenly saw the small Orc at his feet pull out a dagger, ready to stab him. Without hesitation, he struck the creature until it fell. Han Sung-yoon was determined. Even if he died and became a ghost, he would show no mercy to the monsters he encountered. With this, Han Sung-yoon successfully completed the second-floor challenge. When he returned to the waiting room, he realized he could no longer use his old shield. He opened the hologram screen to search for information about other hunters. In the community chat, he saw that half of the group had been killed by the enemy. However, there was someone offering information in exchange for a voucher to return to Earth. The chat room became a hub for sharing information. Ignoring small details, Han Sung-yoon focused on the main point. There were devices for sale after clearing the 5th floor that allowed a temporary return to Earth for a few days. There was also information about system expansions above the 7th floor, where items that could permanently return you to Earth were sold. Han Sung-yoon was excited by this information. He imagined becoming an A-rank hunter if he returned to Earth with his current abilities. Han Sung-yoon opened his information screen and saw a significant increase. He was now feeling dizzy because he really wanted to go back to Earth and show off this incredible ability. Han Sung-yoon felt a bit down thinking about having to go through the 8th floor again, where he had almost died on the 2nd floor, but he decided to stay positive. His stats had improved to a vulnerable 20 seconds. First, he got rid of his torn clothes and absorbed the 5 souls he had collected. After absorbing them, his hologram status screen showed even more improvements. He realized he was filled with strength. Excited, Han Sung-yoon tested his newfound power by running around the room and even on the roof. But because he wasn't used to his massive strength yet, he accidentally bumped into a wall. He noticed there was a significant imbalance in his body due to the sudden growth in strength, but he was satisfied with his current abilities. Han Sung-yoon opened a shop and bought several new items like a stronger shield, magical swords and robes with special effects. He also acquired Indra's sharpness. Now, he had to get used to these new items, so he dedicated himself to tireless training. He wanted to become so strong that no one would dare to approach or harm him. Finally, he returned through the portal and entered the 3rd floor on hard difficulty. This trial had a dual theme. As he entered the cave and looked around the dark surroundings, the system informed him that the opponent would appear in 5 seconds. Han Sung-yoon got into his fighting stance, ready for whatever was coming. But as the countdown ended, the enemy named Guardian Darkness hadn't shown up yet. He stayed alert, waiting. Suddenly, a black shadow behind him moved and stabbed his body with a grotesque handblade. Han Sung-yoon was annoyed and turned around to face the creature. It had eerie red eyes and looked like some kind of doppelganger. Han Sung-yoon was surprised by the monster's sudden attack. He quickly kicked at it, but the creature dodged skillfully inside the dark cave. Now he had to confront this dark doppelganger, a menacing creature with a dark face, sharp teeth, and a long, protruding tongue. Han Sung-yoon glared at the creature with anger burning in his eyes. He was happy that his recovery skill could heal the wounds on his body. The young man felt a sense of relief wash over him. He knew that he had to fight back, or else the creature's weapon would have sliced through his stomach. Now, Han Sung-yoon faced the creature head-on. He noticed that the doppelganger was mimicking his every move. It seemed like it was copying his attack strategies. Of course, Han Sung-yoon had to fight back. When they fought before, Han Sung-yoon managed to hurt this creature. He realized it wasn't just copying his fighting style, but also his healing method. The monster charged at Han Sung-yoon, mimicking its previous attack. Since Han Sung-yoon already knew it was a fake move, he dodged it just in time. Then he struck back using some moves from his weaker swordsmanship skills. The young man and the doppelganger danced around, attacking and injuring each other. Just when Han Sung-yoon felt like he had struck a good blow, suddenly the enemy's sword was right in front of his face. He almost got stabbed, but he fought back just in time, blocking the attack. A moment later, the doppelganger put up a fierce fight that shocked Han Sung-yoon. It seemed like his opponent had become stronger in a very short time, but Han Sung-yoon refused to give up. He activated the special effect of his suit to boost his speed and swiftly closed in on the enemy. He aimed to harm the enemy's body with his high-speed attacks. Luckily, his strike landed, but he paid a heavy price as his right arm was severed. Han Sung-yoon was taken aback, and he screamed in shock as he saw his arm fall to the ground. However, he didn't give in to despair. He refocused his determination and kept his eyes on the doppelganger, who suddenly stopped attacking. Han Sung-yoon realized his opponent was healing himself. Seeing an opportunity, Han Sung-yoon thought of a way to defeat the enemy, even without a sword and his right arm. He decided to use his high-speed skill again. He was willing to try anything at this point. To him, it was better to go down fighting than to wait helplessly for death. Han Sung-yoon sprinted with all his might, screaming loudly. He didn't care if his opponent prepared to counterattack. He kept running until he finally collided with the monster. He smashed the ghastly dark body several times against the cave wall until the doppelganger's body was shattered. The monster couldn't fight back anymore. Han Sung-yoon saw his chance and used his shield to decapitate the doppelganger. With this, Han Sung-yoon won the duel on the 3rd floor. After clearing the trial on the 3rd floor, Han Sung-yoon entered the waiting room on the 4th floor. His severed arm had returned, and he stretched it, testing its strength by hitting the wall. He marveled at how well it had recovered. Feeling relieved, Han Sung-yoon decided to ambush the doppelganger's spirit. He was amazed at how dense the doppelganger's spirit felt compared to other spirits he had absorbed. It was so strong that it raised Han Sung-yoon's rank to Iraq. With his rank increase, his skills also updated. Han Sung-yoon could now absorb the skills of the opponents he defeated. He couldn't believe his luck when he received this notification. Acquiring skills had been a difficult and risky endeavour in his previous match, but now it seemed easier. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.